Hi everyone, it's Lolita and this is a demo for the exercise where we start mixing tints and shades and mutes and tones and undertones of neutrals, rather, with the idea of painting them with certain undertones. The following video is going to show you how to make the basic grid that we're going to be using for that project. I hope you enjoy. So the first thing we're going to do, now that we're getting into a little color mixing, is we are going to make a chart, and we're going to be working with 6 colors. So we want the template for our chart to have 6 rows, because we're going to work with 3 primaries and 3 secondaries, and we're going to create tints today. We're going to do tints, and we're going to do 2 types of tints, 2 types. And those 2 types are, one, we're going to add white to the paint, and the other one, we're going to let the transparency of the paint do the work and create a tint by allowing the white of the paper to show through the paint. And now what a tint is any hue, color, plus white. So a tint is a color plus white. And we're going to create 2 types today. And we're also going to create shades. And shades are any color plus black. So we're going to have any color plus black. So that's, tint is a color plus white, and a shade is color plus, oops, let me put a plus, black. So color plus black. And then we're also going to create a second chart, and for that second chart we're going to still be working with the 3 secondary and the 3 primary colors, and it's going to be an exact replica of this chart, and I'll talk about the details of that in another video. So we know we have 11 inches of paper on this short side and 15 inches of paper on the long side. So since we're working with 6 colors, that's why we're going to create 6 columns. And so what I've done is, I've already done the math here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our rulers and measure up 1/4 inch from the bottom or the top, it doesn't matter. So start at 1 inch and measure up 1/4 inch. And we're going to put a little tick mark there. And from that tick mark, we're, oh, I put it on the wrong place. So let me erase that. And this ruler's wearing out already. So here's 1/4 of an inch. So I went from my 15 mark to 15 1/4, and that's my 1/4 inch mark. Now I am going to make my next tick mark at 1.5 inches. So I'm going from the 15 line to 14.5, and that's where I'm making my first column. Then I'm going to have 1/4 inch in between each column. So I'm going to make another tick mark from this top one. I'm going to go and make it 1/4 inch. So this is 1/4 inch. This is 1/4 inch. And from this point to this point, this is 1.5 inches. So now we're going to go from this point again, and this is going to be an inch and a half. So I'm starting at the 16 mark, and you can use whatever mark you want on your ruler that's convenient. So 16, and I know an inch and a half is going to be at the 15 and a half inch mark. And then I'm going to make my next mark a 1/4 inch up from that. And just for convenience sake, I'm going to slide my ruler down so I've got it at the 14 inch mark again. And I'm going to go up an inch and a half. And then I'm going to go up a 1/4 inch. And again, just for convenience sake, just slide that up to be at a even number 13. And I'm going to go from 13 to 12 and a half. And then another 1/4 inch. Slide that down to 11 just because it's easy. So I'm going to go from 11 to 9 and a half because that's an inch and a half. Then I'm going to go a 1/4 inch in between, and I'm sliding this up because the middle of my ruler is worn out. The little marks are worn out, and the 11s, those marks are easier to see. So 1/4 inch in between, and then I'm just sliding it down to the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm going to go from 10 and a half to 9, and that is where my indication of my columns are going to be. And we're going to do the same measurements on the other end of the paper, and then we're going to make a straight line across. So we're going to start on the other end of the 15-inch side of the paper. So go, when you have your paper oriented the way I've got mine oriented, put the ruler against the 11-inch side, but we're going to the other side of the paper. So let's start at the bottom of the paper, and we want to go 1/4 inch up again, just like we did here, and then we will have an inch and a half again, because that's going to be the width of the column. Then we will mark off a 1/4 inch, and then another inch and a half, and mark off a 1/4 inch, and another inch and a half, and then a 1/4 inch in between. And then we will do another inch and a half and a 1/4 inch in between. And here is from the 9 to 8 and a half. Here is an inch and a half, and then we can do a 1/4 of an inch. And then from moving ruler down just a little, I'm going to go from 7 to 6 and a half, and that is, looks like I got a little, this should be a little higher through here. 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Let's see. Okay, that's a 1/4 inch. And then from 7 to 6 and a half, just looks like I had more room at the top than I did over on the other side. So then I'm going to just connect these lines from one end of my paper to the other where I had done my tick marks. And I'm going from edge to edge on this particular chart. And we're going to go from edge to edge. I think I got a little high in through there. In fact, I know I did. And then again, from one edge of the paper all the way across, there's a 1/4 inch in between. And one edge of the paper all the way across. And so we've got one column drawn out, and this is going to be another one of our, we're going to actually use them as rows. Columns are when they go the length of the paper, and since we're, at any rate, since we're using the other orientation, we're going to be using rows. So this is the first step, and then we're going to, after we've done this, we're going to go back in and we're going to divide each of these long sections into 15 sections so we can do our paint our value chart. I'm sorry, not our value chart, but our color charts. We're going to start doing color mixing. So we'll do our color charts. And again, we're doing 6 different columns because this way we're going to be working with 6 different colors. In addition to working with the 3 primary colors that we worked with last week, we're also going to work with 3 secondary colors from your kit. And you can see over here right above on that other sheet of paper where I've got the color purple painted out, and I tried a couple of the greens out, and I tried a couple oranges out, and I've written out the numbers from your Sakura Koi kit of the colors that you're going to be using. And when I do a demo video in the next video where I demo painting this in, we will use the 176 purple, and we will use the 14 for orange, and we will use the 115 for green. And now I'm just going to move this up here. And there's my last line. And so this is what our chart is going to look like. And we're going to do 2 of these. And you're going to do 1 more. And you can use the first one you created to use it as a template, and it's a lot easier than measuring it out the second time. And just use those for the guidelines where you're going to be putting your lines that go all the way across, and that's how you establish your tick marks for on your second grab, on your second and these are almost like swatching, these creating different, let's get that out of the way. So creating different tints and shades. And then for this second color chart, we're going to be mixing mutes and tones and neutrals. And with the neutrals, we're going to be looking at the undertones and mixing some neutrals to go along with the primary colors that we mixed up. So I'm going to draw that in later. I'm not going to worry about doing that at the moment, but I will have it drawn in, and I'm going to make it identical to this chart. So now the second thing we want to do is we're going to make little segments here to paint in our tints and our shades. And since we want 2 types of tints and 1 type of shade, that means we're going to be painting in 3 different variations of these colors. And so we're going to paint 5 different tints. We're going to paint 5 different shades. So we'll do 5 different tints, 5 different values of tints of the primaries, and then do the same for the secondaries. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to mark these off at 1-inch intervals. So we're going to go along the entire 15-inch length of the paper and mark off tick marks at every 1-inch interval. And so that's going to give us 15 1-inch segments along each of these columns or rows, depending on which direction it's oriented. And you can do the top or the bottom if you'd like, but I'm just doing these rows because I find it to be easier for me to access while I'm doing this video. So I'm going to turn this to the side and just push this all the way up to this line. And then again, mark off little tick marks at every 1 inch mark on this line. So every 1 inch, and then basically I'm going to be subdividing each of these rows into 15 1 inch by 1.5 inch rectangles. And so there we have the guidelines for the next lines that we're going to be making. And these, you can, if you want to draw the lines all the way through, that's fine, but I'm going to draw my lines just inside the larger area, the 1.5 inch edge, because that's the only area that I'm worried about. These are going to be, or concerned with, I said worry, but I'm not really worried in any true sense of that word. So then just lining it up with the 2 1 inch tick marks that I made. And again, I'm just going through my 1.5 inch section, going through the 1.5 inch section, and I'm not even lining it up in terms of any type of number. I'm just using this for a straight edge because I've already made the marks where I need to line them up, so we don't have to worry about anything except just using the straight edge at this point. So again, and I'm going to do this for all 15 segments. That moved a little, and try to hold your ruler a little more steady than I'm holding mine. And keep moving through. And I'm not digging really hard with my pencil, but I am just leaving lines. And that's going to be just fine. And continuing on with making my 1 inch segments in each of these rows. And we see how it's developing, and each one of these is going to get a different tint. And we'll try to go from the full hue at one end to a very light tint of the color by the time we get to the 5th square. So, but I'll explain that more in the next video. This one is just to create the actual template of the chart that we're going to be using to do our color mixing swatches. And the first one we're going to do is going to be Tints and Shades. And then the second one we're going to do 3 different kind of color mixings, where we'll do mutes and tones and neutrals. So I've only got a little bit left here. Keep lining up, but again, do that same process every single time. And again, you see I'm just only going through these lines just because for me it makes it easier to read rather than having my lines go through those 1/4 inch intervals in between my rows. Oh, got a little too reachy and got in the water. I'm just going to turn this around and go the other direction because it's, again, just easier for me to access and see from where I am sitting, from my station point. And again, where I'm not going to be going through the 1/4 inch segments, I'm just going along where it's partitioned off the 1.5 inch length, and that's the only place I'm putting my lines at my 1 inch intervals. And you can see it's creating a nice little grid, a nice little chart that we're going to be able to use. And I do want you to do yours as nice and neat as mine. I'm going to ask you guys to take a photo of your chart, and that's going to be part of what you submit. Just your photo of your blank chart, and we're going to label that in. But the directions for that labeling will be on the next video. This one. I'm going to have you just take a picture of this and submit that. And I'll give you feedback on your chart and give you a grade on just your chart making skills. It's almost like a bonus points. So I'll probably do make it a 5-point type of assignment for you. So, and then if you want feedback, I'll give you feedback. But I'll talk about that in our meetup. By the time you see this video, we'll already have had our meetup. Those of you that aren't in my class, you don't have a meetup with me, do you? No, you do not. Okay. Fun with that is over. We're almost finished with this chart. Only got one more set of lines to do, and that will be finito. And then you see they're nice, beautiful 1 inch intervals. And it's just a beautiful, well organized chart. And now we're going to be painting this in shortly. And we're going to paint this particular one in with tints. 2 types of tints that you can make with watercolor. So there we go. This is the chart that I want you to make. And then you're going to make one more. And I'm not going to make that one on camera, but I will have 2 of them, and I will label both of them, and they will be posted in your assignment labeled the way they're supposed to be labeled. And that is all for this particular video. Starting in our color mixing exercises, we've already made this chart and labeled it. And you can see here where I've gone in and made heavier lines on this particular chart every 5 rectangles. This is a close-up of the grid, and here you can see how it's labeled the 3 different sections that have 5 rectangles each. And in the first set, we see that is where we're going to paint tints with white. The second set of 5, we're going to paint tints where we use the white of the paper and a dilution of the paint solution where we dilute it with water. And then shades is going to be the area where we add in blacks to the different colors. And you see how it's also labeled where it shows a section of where the 3 primary colors are red, yellow, and blue, and then it shows the 3 secondary colors. And we are going to paint this in entirely for the tints and shades portion of this exercise.